Good evening.
No,
everyone.
I'm not.
Welcome back. We're live. We're here. We're ready. We're not ready.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
If you're here, if you're tuning in, good evening. Good evening. Welcome, Ian. How are you?
Good, man. How you doing? Good to see you again. Good to be back.
Fantastic. Amped for tonight,
Hi.
that's for sure. Thea.
Yo, to Mod Brew. Hi. Hello.
Say hi while we got her.
Good.
You may
I am
disappear
100%.
briefly for a
We've just
minute.
gone to an ad break, my friends.
Yeah.
So anyone who is a subscriber will not be
break
getting
in
ad
progress.
breaks.
God damn.
Yeah,
Good to
that
see.
is okay.
Sorry.
It is
Welcome
good
on
to see
Mod
people.
Brew. Hello, Semi Slick. Good to see you there too.
Yeah,
Got a few already. Hey guys, good to see you.
yeah.
Well, let's just
Good to
keep
see you,
chatting. Like, I think when this happens, we
Yeah.
just stay active in chat. I'll like immediately respond
Yeah.
to someone.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Cool.
we need to incorporate the ad break.
Yes,
Yeah.
Hello, we're
Okay.
back.
Hello,
you
everyone.
lucky
Welcome.
guys.
We are
Apologies.
so planned. We
We're
are
slightly
slick.
off
We
time.
are schmick. We are
Woo.
going to breathe. Everyone, okay, I want everyone in chat, deep breath
Everyone
in,
listening.
feel the breath into your lungs, and then breathe out.
It's good.
And just take
Feels
a
real.
moment. Just look
Welcome,
where you are. Where are you
Jesters.
sitting? Yeah.
You're leading us there, Thea.
Lead a little bit of a mindfulness exercise. Yeah.
Mindfulness.
Nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. We're all active.
Good to be back.
practices of
Good to see you
mindfulness. So
all.
we're here.
We're here.
Beautiful. All righty.
We are doing good.
Good to see everyone. Hello, welcome back to The Social Pillar. My name is Jared, also known as the GM Chef, and Ian and Thea are with me once again for the third episode in a bit of an arc about media that inspires our role-playing games, influences us as dungeon masters, as performers, and just little bits of our journey along the way, what has inspired us and what we've taken to the table, and we're finishing that with film and television tonight. So I'm super excited to continue this conversation and give it a nice conclusion, and we'll shoot off for the rest of the season with various insane things we're going to try and do. So before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that we are coming to you from Aboriginal land. I'm coming to you from Ku-ring-gai land. We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land we are streaming to you from, and pay our respects to elders past and present, and extend those respects to any First Nations people who are watching. Thea, Ian, who wants to jump in? Does anybody have something they want to immediately take off with? Because we were going to talk about why this. What do we love about this? Is there anything that specifically inspires
I
you?
have a question. I have a
Let's start
question
with
to
a
bounce
question.
that straight back. Here is my little tennis racket.
Okay, cool.
And that is absolutely not a tennis racket sound, but I like it. It's cute. It's a Pokemon.
loved it.
Oh, woo. Let's ignore that I just did that. I don't know where that came from. Film and television. So why would we as game masters be inspired by film and television? Don't we want to create our own worlds? Don't we want to tell original stories?
Jared, do you want to answer that
Why is
first?
that?
Or?
There's no greater flattery than imitation. Is that the same?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
And there's no such thing as an original idea. No, like it's just the fact that, yeah, no, I'll hit it with the classics because, and like the little bit of, ancient wisdom here, because essentially there have been stories told over and over again in variations, these meanings and what they convey, the way they're told to the people that consume them, because obviously around the world, different locations, different cultures consume entirely different kinds of film and television. I mean, I've recently watched RRR.
Yeah, how cool is
action
that?
film that is 3 hours, and it is bonkers,
RRR?
soulful and beautiful.
So
Yeah,
good.
it's called RRR, and it stands for 3 different things, and it's like air, earth, and fire. It has this whole theme. But Bollywood is bonkers. I've seen it firsthand when I worked at a hotel in events, and this Bollywood was doing a showing, and they spare no expense. They go all out. They
Amazing.
demand things that are borderline impossible. So it's an entirely crazy industry, and because they do bonkers things, it's so D&D, it's so role-playing game. It's just the stuff you
So
really want to
fantasy, right?
do. It's really fancy, and it's overkill, and it's like one man being chased by a tiger through the jungle and then trapping it and apologizing to it for what he needed to do. And it's like, man, it hits. Every scene has a very specific purpose, and they span no expense. So just looking at that as an entire subculture and what that represents can inspire the way that your modality when you approach role-playing games. So there you go.
I can riff on that. I completely agree. The idea of also that he can say that there's only 7 stories in the world. Some people have said as well. So like you can always borrow from those. I've being someone who's been working in the arts for a long time, some people say that artists steal and borrow and take and whatever it is from wherever. I have heard a number of very amazing artists that I look up to who said, but artists don't steal, but they borrow liberally and shape it into the things that they have, into the things so that they can express things they're trying to express in their style. So it's like we're inspired by stuff every day anyway. So it's like the wonderful thing about TV and film is people's fantastic visions come to life and they're recorded. You get a chance to look back at it, but it has visual as well as audio, and it has a narrative that you can be completely inspired by. And to give you kind of leaping points that also other people will get. So it's also a nice hook to get into particular styles or genres that you want to get into. So no problem with that. It's like, and imitation is the greatest form of flattery. I completely agree. So honour your references. That's the key. Honour your references.
Absolutely.
I actually want to jump off on that, because I think that that's one of the things that I do when I'm describing scenes sometimes, and depending on the group and the vibe, and I'll go into that a bit later, but it's like, like that scene out of Apocalypse Now, where the trees are bursting into fire, and and that's like it's a shorthand, right? Like I would love to always have that creative energy to describe things in minutiae and be able to really build a picture, but sometimes with the action going, I just want to do a reference because there's so many things that are ubiquitous in our, like in sort of Western culture and in the culture of the gamers that we often play with, that you can just say, hey, it's like Apocalypse Now. It's like, I hate to be derivative, The Lord of the Rings as they come into Smaug's cave. It's an easy way of building that.
Absolutely. It's a shortcut. It's a little hack that why would you describe a grand hall filled with beautifully carved pillars, like every inch of it cut from stone, and the darkness is all consuming and you hear echoes of cackles and like you can do it. But it's like you're walking through the mines of Moria. That big massive thing.
And sometimes you want to build it and you want to like be the person, but now and then I have got an amazing thing set up which is going to be cool, and I just want to get there.
Well, that's a good point, because also sometimes I think it's an awesome, and I think this is great that we're starting off with this question for like intro DMs for guys who are starting out as this. Use that. Like if you've been like, I want to really start with this thing from this film, but I really like how this TV series does this. And it's like, so I'm going to take it from there and go for it. Why not? Because this is your story. And it's like, and your group story, it's fantastic.
Don't ever be afraid that someone's going to recognize that and be like, oh, but you're doing that. Doesn't matter. They won't, first of all. It's like you're doing magic because you're presenting all of this in a different context. And I think that just on the, like, all of this really comes down to like, what is a way to communicate and reach a ground of familiarity when you're communicating with other people. And it's like, okay, guys, magic works like this, like it's a basic levitation spell like Wingardium Leviosa, and people just get it. And it's a quick way to just hack an understanding of the mechanics. Thank you. Wingardium Leviosa.
I wish there was an Aussie Hogwarts that came into the series. That would just be the best.
Oh my God, I'm sure somebody must have done that somewhere. Leviosa, mate.
That's an RPG in itself. I think that's got to be.
No, what is?
Amazing. No, Wuckas, mate. What?
Yeah, just Just some Australianisms for our international.
I mean, when you think of like the giant spiders and someone walks in and says, I'm not here to F spiders.
Yeah, a whole different feel to the scene.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Whole different feel to the scene.
I have added chuck a cheeky jabby as terminology in all my games ever since I did it on Jasper's game day, and now it's a thing.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That is
so
amazing.
everyone in my games has to have some cheeky jabbies, and it's just ridiculous.
I love
and
it.
I was like, that's the most Australian thing I've ever seen.
Can you imagine running an international game and just pulling that out and just the faces, they'd be like,
There was internationals. I believe there was a Canadian woman. Oh, bless her
Nice.
for watching this. Thank you, but I'll be damned if I can. But
I
it was
have
her
done that
first
with
D&D
American
game
players.
on stream for
oh
charity.
my gosh.
Bless.
Beautiful.
Never met any of us before. Like, goddamn. So,
For you, Thea, if we put the question back to you, what is it for yourself? Yeah.
wow.
I think for me, it's very much about that kind of vibe. Yes, I'm a hippie.
The
But
vibe.
yeah, so I think it's important. And what I was just saying before is being able to quickly build that shorthand for scene building and world building. I think that's a really important thing to talk about. And then for me, and I know we'll talk about this a bit later, I probably take vibe or atmosphere, if I use what is probably a more descriptive and correct term, but vibe sounds cool. That atmospherics I like to take, and it gives you that kind of mood. And again, it's kind of shortcuts. It's cueing me into certain mood states for the kind of game that I want to be running.
It's kind of that fit.
Yes.
I know what you mean by that whole sense of I like a mood to be set. And there's a kind of that whole thing of a picture tells 1,000 words. Well, if you've got a scene that tells like tens of thousands of words, and just to convey not just the look or the sound or feel, but sometimes it's the emotion between particular characters or a scenario that you really want. I want the Minds of Moria scene in my game. I really want to set something up because that's freaking amazing. And so it's like, it's such an awesome way to connect with it. So
it gives you a platform to build on.
Yeah.
You can immediately
Absolutely.
go, this is where I want it to be, and like steal a location, but then flesh it out and make it your own. I recently I was binge watching I watched Journey to the Center of the Earth 2.
Which one?
When you get to the
newer one.
What year?
the one with Dwayne.
Rock the Dwayne Johnson. Yes.
Rock the Dwayne.
No.
The Dwayne Rock Johnson. Johnson D. Rock
Any of
Dwayne.
my Spelljammer players know they named their first ship Dwayne because it was a giant beholder ship that they carve out of meteors.
Ah, excellent.
I love it. I love it so much.
Anyway, there's a temple scene basically, and they're like looking at the clues and the context and the environments.
Yeah.
And they're just really digging into it and breaking it down. That's such a beautiful scene to actually get an understanding of what that might look like in a D&D game, especially for new DMs. So yeah, like you can get down to the minutiae, and I think that's what we're going to maybe head into, guys. Do you guys want to talk about something specific?
Let's talk about minutiae.
Film or television?
Just before we do, add to the chat out there,
is there?
What chat, you guys, if you want to share in the chat as well about films or TV that's really inspired your RPGs, we'd love to hear from you, because it might riff on some things that we're talking about, but also just inspire people who are watching as well. So please do. But I might kick it off then. Something actually that I just remembered recently, I for a couple of years had been wanting to introduce a story. I'm running a game with my team, and there's a couple of influences, but I'm going to kick off with one. It's the...
I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Go for it.
Thea, we'll be back. On that note, there was a scene. We were doing a D&D game, Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, and it has a particular character and the history about her, the archdevil Zariel. If you know anything about it as well, it's a pretty epic kind of story, and it's a story that is the initial story that kicks off things, and it's about the fall of an angel, basically, and it's into war and blood and the whole blood war, and it's just how all these warriors who went along with her got completely dismayed by her lack of understanding that they're mortal, so they can't survive, and so they try to leave. And I wanted that sense of this kind of epic, broad, sort of like feeling of the loss of something mighty and powerful and good, but turning to darkness, but still believing that they're doing the right thing. So I was kind of like I wanted music to back it up. And so because of that, I kept looking around at some music, and then all of a sudden it just got me one day. And I put on and I started telling the story of what happened to her, and put on the 1989 Batman movie soundtrack, like the beginning part, just how it builds and builds, and then it just goes boom, and it's like grand, operatic even, but dark at the same time. Something about something that shouldn't be quite as good as it could be. There's a dark way of getting things done for justice, in a sense. So I was like, I had to do it, and I think it had an effect as well. So thank you guys for also support as well when I put it out there. But it was so helpful to have that in the background just to build the mood, and everyone got it. I think everyone got it from there. So that's one for me. How about you guys?
Jeez, what a strong opener.
Well, it was for music as well. It was also the film, because everyone gets that context. But
that's exactly it. Is I actually would counterpoint, because I generally have a rule where I don't allow soundtracks and theme songs when I play, because it immediately takes you to the Mines of Moria or but you've engineered it to fit that purpose. When it's used correctly, it's not just in a random playlist that comes up because you chose epic fantasy soundtracks and then you get the Witcher theme song. Like, oh man, when you're in that part of the thing, and it's like, you can't use game soundtracks or anything, because they have such an emotional tie already for a lot of people who have consumed that. So that's something that I've found. But when you're trying to achieve that, bang, you've nailed it.
I completely agree. I don't really want to use stuff that's really well known as well, because then all of a sudden it kind of takes away from it a bit. For me, this was like a rare occasion, because usually it's like I'm using Atmos and other things, but I thought this was something I clearly wanted as a specific reference, so everyone would get, okay, this is kind of where we're going. Sammy Slick put in the chat, like Lucifer, absolutely like the story of Lucifer, and I was trying to get something around that wasn't around when we did this. So that's something.
That's insane.
How about yourself?
But even
like
then,
something
that music is also so beautiful on its own, and so empowering and energetic and soulful anyway. So it's like it's gonna provide that atmosphere that it's engineered for the film anyway. For me, I passionately have run Curse of Strahd many times. We're going to keep bringing it up, because it's been the most...
We want to hear the stories.
We do. We definitely want to hear the stories.
That I've implemented, because I've implemented and run things differently each time as well. And when I was running it for the first time, there's specific vampire media, film and television that I've watched, and that has directly influenced my games. And then there's stuff that has come out more recently, like the 4-part Dracula series on Netflix. And maybe a year or two ago.
18 months ago, I think.
Yeah.
So there you go. It's just that is now a beautiful portrayal of a vampire lord, eternal and cruel and powerful and all sorts of things. You can take that, and it's a really good sort of chapter by chapter telling of a great arc. So by all means, use something like that. But for me, Hemlock Grove, the series on Netflix that I watched, with a great cast, pretty good actors across the board. Alexander Skarsgård, Femke Jensen,
amazing.
just a really, really solid cast. And then she plays a vampire lord. Effectively, she is the the head vampire. She has a mad scientist working for her at the company that she's inherited.
Fantastic.
Because all of this, and then her son is, and they're called Upir, not vampire.
Of course.
And her son goes to the local
legally
high school,
distinct.
and he knows that he can make people do things, but he doesn't know how or why, because he hasn't become of age yet to become full need to drink blood yet.
Okay.
And so
that was a big influence for you as well.
Well, you'll see why. Because the young gypsy boy moves back into town, whose family used to live there.
Is this spoilers? Do we need to give a spoiler warning?
No, this is all in the first episode. And so these are the two main characters. So Alexander Skarsgård, I can't remember the gypsy boy's name, but that's all I'm going to say, because you'll know that he's Upir, but I can't say anything else because that will absolutely ruin the first episode. But the opening scenes are shocking, and it throws you right in. So go check it out if you can. The only place I saw it was on Apple TV right now, which is very unfortunate. But yeah, check it out if you can. It's vampires and werewolves in high school, but it's gritty, and you'll see that in the opening scene.
There's actually there's an RPG system around that. I can't remember what it is about.
In high school?
It's around being monsters in a high school.
I think I know what you mean. Yes.
Yeah.
It looks fun, actually. Yeah.
It does look fun, yeah. So, but anyway, and I guess that's an interesting one. So we're talking about that, how you can be influenced and influenced in different ways, because I think the way that I consume television and movies is not so much to consume them as a game master and then spit them back out as games. I just realized how horrifying that is as imagery. Don't dig into it too much and don't think on it too much.
Monster.
Bet you are. But I think it is for me, I use sort of TVs and games, one as that kind of shorthand. Hey, it's like this, or you'll see it like that. Like Van Helsing, as Sammy says in the chat, or, in Dracula, but for me, it's more about setting a scene and that atmosphere. So thinking about, hey, do I want to run a game that is shocking? And, do I want to run the Hunger Games? Do I want to run Snakes on a Plane? And even I think for me, thinking about that for that kind of, like Snakes on a Plane, bear with me here, because I know it does not seem like a typical inspiration for a tabletop RPG. But
it could be an awesome one shot.
If you think about it, so the whole premise is absurd, and yet it's played straight by so many of the actors. These effort stakes, and it to me, that's a vibe. That is a kind of game. It is madcap. It is insane, but there are genuine consequences. And then there's crazy stuff. The Snake Ex Machina. It's a spoiler, but I suspect it's an old movie where you use a snake as a tourniquet. I might want to use.
I don't think I've ever seen it in completion.
That's a shortcut. It's a shortcut.
I don't know.
Was planned, but I had so much fun watching that. So that might be an adventure that I want to play, and it's crazy. And that's great. And that helps give me inspiration of thinking kind of outside the box or outside the plane or outside the typical way you would use a snake. But then if I have a game that people want to do in a more serious tone, then maybe, to fall back on, again, shorthand, is it a Lord of the Rings? Is it a first-time player who really, really wants to play that classic elf and they want that high magic? So I'll look at Lord of the Rings. Or if we're looking at, say, kind of a horror or like a disturbing, terrifying, Is it a horror of, and now I can't think of the horror that I was thinking of. I should have made notes. But is it a drag me to hell, bleak kind of, no one's getting out of this alive? Or is it it's the tomato plant, Feed Me Seymour?
Oh, God. Yes. That. Oh, my God, I can't recall either. Little Shop of Horrors. Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah. Is it that kind of horror, which is still horrifying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I take the inspiration from films and TVs. And obviously I think there is the undercurrent of where there's those certain tropes that just work in stories, But I do like playing with it. Every D&D player will never trust the child that they just met.
Oh, my God.
Often, someone help me, any experienced D&D player will never trust that.
Yeah.
But I like to play with those tropes.
How unfortunately... So in Curse of Strahd, in Ravenloft Castle, there is a temptation of, the portrayal of this innocent little character. I will say no more.
Yeah.
I think I know what you mean.
The cleric took him on board and put him on his shoulders
Oh, bless.
My God.
That could be interesting.
And let's just say Piano Wire came out pretty quickly.
Oh my God.
No, it came out at the right time when the cleric was just kind of lagging behind the rest of the party. And this was a Furbolg. So
Oh wow.
Nice.
Piano Wire,
Furbolgs
and
make
they
good clerics.
bricked out.
Dropped them.
Great clerics, forge clerics, just making shit all the time. It was great.
Nice. Nice. Actually,
but
speaking of children, do you remember the first game we ever played, Jared? On stream?
No.
So there was a child in that game, and you all trusted them and tried to rescue them.
Was I in this as well?
Yeah. No, you weren't in this one, Ian.
Okay. I was thinking I can't remember this.
A long time ago.
I was trying to do the right thing for some.
I know. It was wonderful. And then I ran that same game, and the child was a bad guy.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So I guess that's that example of playing with those tropes, which kind of
was just what I would
more
have
from games.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is about,
We made the dance.
I think that's a topic we're going to have as well as a separate one about tropes, like famous story tropes that we use and RPG tropes.
Sure, that would be amazing.
I was just thinking about what you said,
which is like bringing characters to the table, and like you have to like lean into the tropes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about other things because it'd be good to hear your other experience about other games that you've had over the years, particularly about films that you guys really love. Like if you think about that now as well, about films or TV series that you really love. Start with films anyway. Same for the chat guys. If you do that, I've got a couple specifically that I've referenced for the game that we talked briefly about in the prep for this. Current game I'm running with my guys, I'm very much based on set in the Forgotten Realms, and it's going to be them heading down the Sword Coast. But I really wanted the feeling of the film Princess Mononoke for all Studio Ghibli fans out there.
Oh my gosh.
The blend of that kind of like really lo-fi fantasy, but there's this eldritch kind of magic and majesty about nature, but it's smashed with the clash of culture and civilization that's coming to the world, basically, and they don't mix. But they're both also not completely evil, which I kind of liked. It's like they're capricious at both of them at times. So it's just how do they deal with each other. So I wanted that mixed with Firefly, which I absolutely love. TV series, if anyone knows it, and just that kind of, ramshackle group of people just trying to get by and a little bit on the edge of ethics, with what they do. But it's really because they're trying to survive, and you've got the clash again. There's a kind of clash between nature and the wild versus this. What is it called? The Alliance, who are like this real serious, really kind of like the Empire kind of thing. But they have their benefits. They have their benefits, but they also have their drawbacks because of each of this. So it's not one or the other. There's the challenge.
And there's the Reavers.
And we had one just example of that influence was when they're traveling with a caravan and their guards for it. It's like a trope, talk about that. Yeah. And I kept thinking about, God, I'm starting to think I also had a Game of Thrones reference, which is the loot train thing, the whole caravan thing. That was kind of an influence on that. For anyone who's seen that, no spoilers, I won't go into that. But I actually, if anyone knows Firefly, there's the people on the edge of space who are meant to be insane and just devour people called the Reavers, and they're just absolute barbarians, and people think they've gone mad at the edge of space, so people avoid them. And I wanted a scene of them coming, like something like that coming after them, because there's a whole thing of, if you know Baldur's Gate, Descent to Avernus, there's things about devils and demons which are in there. And I thought there's a whole group of demon cultists who've been raging across the whole region, setting fires to places and just reaving. And I wanted that feeling of them coming after them from behind and coming and coming and coming and getting closer. And they're like, what do we do? And I was specifically referencing the first episode of Firefly, thinking about they've got to get at it, they've got to do something. And I didn't want to have any solutions planned. I just wanted to see how do they deal with it, but I wanted that mood. I wanted that feeling of this is like, we could die here. This is really serious. and they managed to save the caravan, but it was like insane. It was fantastic. But having that as that reference all the time, it just was such an easy shortcut to the emotion and to the little beats that I wanted to have along the way for that scene. It was so much fun. Yeah. So that was something I was going to sort of to bring in and to make that come alive. Have you guys had films that you really like or TV shows you really like and that you realise you may have actually had a link to in the games that you played?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And I think I would say not so much with the D&D games that I've run, but with some of the other systems. So there's a very simple, very straightforward, very quick to set up system called Lasers and Feelings.
Yes.
I love Lasers and Feelings. I highly recommend that to anyone. It's great for a party. I'm not sponsored, but I recommend it. But you can run it with a number of different, moods to it. So for me, if I'm looking at running something that's sort of serious, genuine peril, I think of Alien. So the movie Alien, the original, back in the 70s.
Claustrophobia kind of feel.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I sort of take from that is that way to build the tension is to describe that sense of being enclosed, of there's a terrifying thing out there, and that's not the bad guy. That's just the environment. Space doesn't like you.
Yeah.
And then also that claustrophobia of being trapped within a vast space that will kill you or your characters, but then also that creeping horror. So that's great for running that kind of system that I genuinely want to be frightening. Yeah. But at the same time, if I want something that's a little more fun, and I think of Spaceballs. And that is where I kind of pull the characters from. I mean, there's a lot that's problematic with Spaceballs if you go back and watch it now, like a lot. But there's some definite funny moments. And again, that kind of madcapness, if that's a word, is something that I draw from. So I think that's, I don't really have favorite movies. It tends for me to be linked in to what I'm trying to create. I guess I do have those shorthand description movies, but nothing that I really kind of as a go-to. But that, again, I think that reflects more on me is that most of the media I consume is short form on content creator type stuff. So YouTube, that sort of thing.
That's interesting because that's, I mean, film, TV in itself, because it's like the shorter form stuff is more and more popular these days than long form film. People are going to film less and less. So it's like, are there things that you have that are short form that you get inspired by?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of it is not fiction. So it doesn't really fit under our blanket here. But there's a couple of really good, I wouldn't call them, webisodes. Is that like a very old way of referring to things?
Still weird. I think it's still relevant. Yeah.
It's audio, it's podcast. It's just what it is.
Yeah. It's a thing. But there's a really interesting one, Sarcastic Productions, and they talk a lot about tropes and they talk a lot about story. And I find the analysis that they do of film and television fascinating and really helps inform me of the kind of characters I want to build, the kind of stories I want to build. So I can actually really recommend them. Sarcastic Productions on YouTube, not affiliated, but they're great.
Cool.
But yeah, and that kind of reflects the sort of me as a consumer of media, I suppose, is I'm not, weirdly, for somebody who loves to run games that are fantastical out there, I don't watch a lot of fiction, which, I mean, I've got my go-to favorite movies, but I don't. Now I'm thinking, do they influence me as a game master? I think in terms of characters. So one of my all-time favorite movies is The Incredibles, the first one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Such a good film.
Such a good film. And again, it's that idea of people doing what they think is best. And that I think those are the stories that influence me. So it's, it's a little outside of what we're talking about here. But how about you guys?
I don't know. I don't think it's outside. I think Incredibles is a really good reference. I mean, that's a good point because we talked about this like in the prep, and actually it'd be good to hear you guys out there. Yeah. It's easy to talk about references like Lord of the Rings, like, or Game of Thrones, which are like two ends of the spectrum, or Harry Potter, which is different. Like those kind of flavors of fantasy is one thing. But like you said about getting interested in characters, there's that I love film. I grew up with film, so it's like I could name you 100 films that are my favorite film, and it's not like it's because how you choose between your children kind of thing. So it's like,
oh dear.
What is your favorite?
Yeah, it's like there is one, but it's the whole thing of. There are so many, and it's generally the films that I love to come back to again and again. There are emotional beats in there, and there are story narratives that I know just need to be told, and they're just rich and fantastic. So one of them for me, which actually for character, like you said, this is one for an NPC. I could talk about player characters later, but for a villain, I love The Godfather. It's an amazing film. It's not everyone's favorite, but I know for me, I've watched it many, many times, and there's so much in it. And you've got this family, clearly that's it's a crime family, but they actually really want to live the American dream, if you want to call it that. But literally, actually, just to have a family that's successful and do what they can. And the original Godfather grew from an olive oil sort of like business that grew and grew, and he kept trying to do the things a right way, and with those he worked with it was great, and those that didn't and were unfair, he influenced them. It may have been unethical, it may have been immoral, it may have been violent crime or whatever it was. Whatever you want to take from that, in the end people respected him, they feared him as well, and he did it to protect his community, which is really interesting. And then it comes to the first third of the film, he gets shot down, and it's between the sons who's going to take on from there, because I don't even consider the daughter. It was another time, but that's another story. But the two older sons, one's a highly aggro and very emotional outburst and is just completely violent and wants to get revenge. The second brother is just just happy to get on with life and really doesn't have any interest in like the business or anything. And the younger son is a golden boy. He went to college. He went to the war, was a war hero, and they actually tried to keep him out. The dad tried to keep him out of the business and be the kind of real shining light of the family. Named Michael, for anyone with Christian background, Saint Michael being the kind of defender. I think there is an analogy there, but there's a moment where it turns, and he finds out because of that. He's been at war, he's killed people, and he actually knows I'm not as fazed by it as other people. And when it comes to protecting the family, when the dad's down and all the others are acting emotionally, he says, no, we've got to do it this way. But he becomes so businesslike and so ruthless, he starts destroying everything around them until he's in the second film, he's actually just driven everyone away, but he's ruthless and has an amazingly powerful empire. And everyone fears him, but nobody loves him. Nobody loves him. And I thought, that is a villain. Like, that's someone that you can look and go, oh, how are we going to take this person down? They're just ruthless. They've got everyone in their pocket and all this, but and I'd love that as an influence for a character as well, because that kind of stuff, like, honey to the bee for me, because it's really good influence as well, just to give like as a reference point of, okay, that makes sense. And I like my villains complex. I don't like I'm not a cookie cutter kind of like, hey, you can go in and just beat them up and get some experience and
I agree.
treasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Complex villains, I think, are far more interesting and far more fun in what is a role play game. And I know a lot of the modules will have fairly straightforward villains, but for me, I don't like to run those kind of games. And I agree. I do the same thing. I take a lot of my NPC, my villains, and I'm doing villains in inverted commas because on reflection, I think most of my games, the antagonist, because most of them are not there to do bad things. They've got a perfectly legitimate interest that they are defending, and they have their reasons for it. And I think that's a really interesting one. For me, I find I draw a lot of characters, just general NPCs. I'll just pull one out of a movie if I need to.
Oh, yeah.
And again, we're talking shortcuts. Well, I'm talking shortcuts because, you have a shop. It's a souvenir shop, and your party walks in and suddenly they're fascinated by the story of the person behind the counter who you created 10 seconds ago. Right. They're going to be Frozone's wife from The Incredibles. And I'll put a story there.
Yep.
Yeah, always. That's
do that
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you end up doing that a lot, but I actually focus down into that, and I'll go, okay, well, why would I not immediately kind of begin to mimic and do perhaps an impersonation or my version of a character or even just an actor, because I do the voices and the accents. That is for me like my core sounding board effectively. As I go, right, am I mimicking this? Am I doing this? I recently watched Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and what I was most inspired about this time watching was Alan Rickman's little I don't know little
Marvin.
Yeah, Marvin.
God damn, the entire vibe of that character. I'm not even going to do Alan Rickman, but just the whole defeated attitude and just, yes, of course, all right, I'll do it. And then if you just do a different voice, I can just do a different accent or something. It's like, yes, all right. And then, that's a whole vibe. And I'll just bring that to the table the next week. And if it sticks, it sticks. If it is a character and an NPC that they bounce off and they enjoy, great. It sticks around. Otherwise, I'm not going to keep throwing too much effort in. But once something kind of lands and has a hook to the table, that's when I'll focus down a little bit and go, right, I need to curate an accent. I do still find myself quite a lot trying to scramble and go, oh God, what was this character's accent? I haven't figured out a good way to keep track of it all.
Yeah,
pull on literally what you like straight away.
In the note-taking episode, maybe, or in another episode. We need to do another episode.
We do need to do another episode.
Just expanding on the ever endeavor.
The ever-expanding list. I will say, though, in terms of prep, and using characters from films, sometimes as a shorthand to remind me of how I want to play a significant NPC, I'll just stick a picture. Yeah. So it can be an actor, it can be an actor in character, it could be a cartoon sometimes. I mean, animation has some amazing characters in there. And that for me is that cue to help me remember what is it about that character that I'm trying to put across in the game. Because I'll be honest, I tend not to have the best memory. I'm paying attention to a bunch of things, and generally it's not taking notes.
That's a general GM thing. It's like, I swear, if you're running so many things, it's like you can have, I've got, the tables of just different names and different personalities or characteristics and stuff. They're so handy. But every now and then it's just like, I'll have a whole array of pictures and just like, that one, I'm going to go with this. And you just mimic, like you said, from a film in particular. You just reminded me, though, of something I came up with recently, and there was a character I knew that I had to come across who was integral. They had to talk to. He's from Elven kind of nobility, but he was the one who was passed over, and he was like, he's just chip on his shoulder kind of guy, but they have to win him over, so he's kind of got a bit of leverage. And I was trying to think of who would be kind of a good lever for that, and it just came to me, and I was thinking of Loki, and that he's like absolutely privileged and this, and I even it's weird because I had a couple of things I wrote down about how he is, but I just kept remembering what's the actor's name? He's fantastic. Him.
Oh my god!
So,
Tom Hiddleston.
So it was like. He comes in the first time he meets them, and he's been briefed that they are trying to meet with him by the Duke of the town or whatever it was. And so he comes across and he's like, so here you are. And there was a moment he says he looks around and he said, and I said, what are you all doing? And there was one point where one of our characters, who's a halfling kind of barbarian, was just chewing down on cheese that had gone literally a little drunk on cheese, and which went cheese like this. And
that's fantastic.
The rest of the group, we're already a bit kind of unsure about him, and he just says as a leading point, that's the kind of caliber of people I'm dealing with. All right. And so he kept talking, and it got in the craw of some of my players that went, like this. I didn't plan that. That was just knowing that's the kind of thing he'd say. And it was so easy just to go, that's great. And I was like, okay, that works. We'll keep going with that then. Yeah. And so, it's so handy.
It is. And I think that's something I want to do more of, because I'm very good at doing unlikable NPCs.
Oh my God.
Having the ones that are.
Why is that a thing?
It is. But in terms of the likable NPCs, apart from the pets, but having the ones that are just the nice I need to use more references for that, because I think my default is I fall back on the unlikable NPC, and we're not going to go into the psychology of that. I don't need to expose that much of myself. Thank you. I appreciate the care.
Yeah, no,
But I'm going to start doing that more. And I like the idea that you brought up, Ian, of having like sort of your bank of names. I think I'm going to put together a little bit of a flip book of pictures of characters.
Yeah.
So when it comes up, I can just have that sitting in front of me and like, this is who I am right now. And I'm not sure if that is a performance trick as well, but that's certainly something that I think would be very helpful.
I think the inspiration from it, because you can have, sorry, Jared, go ahead.
Yeah, all of these are things that I do because I use Notion, which is like this, this pad of just information, and you can fill it with all sorts of media. From one prep page, I will go, right, I need a list of NPCs. I need some stat blocks. I need some things. It's all of the mise en place in its place method that I use.
Yeah.
But I will absolutely put links to pictures, or even just put the pictures in the Notion document. It's all there. And, I format it in that way because that's exactly it. And then it's not just beautiful inspiration for you to see that character, bring that forward, but you can show the character if that is a visual of that character for you. But the visual doesn't have to be how you describe the character. You could have a photo of Hagrid because you want to talk like this and be large and
and you never have to tell the players.
Hagrid in the sleigh.
No.
You're all right, Harry.
You never have to tell the players.
No, right. But that could be just some dwarven dude.
Yeah.
But you're not going to show a photo of Hagrid if that's what
and that's the thing, because it's like you can get any images as well, which is going to give you inspiration. And it's funny, interesting, the difference with something like a link to TV and film characters, if you've got an image of those, is because you've also got the knowledge of the story that will hook you. Usually it'll be, and it's interesting too, because if you get a picture of a character from a TV show, let's say it's Galadriel or something from Lord of the Rings or something, it's different if you have her when she's saying those last wise words to Frodo before he goes off and is kind of gentle but like there, or it's the one that she meets him for the first time in front of the scrying thing, and you're like, they're different moods, but if you have that picture, that's a whole different thing that you're going to lead from for the kind of character that you're after. Which is really cool.
It's a very different story, and I think that's probably a really important thing for building. I nearly said flavorful, that's the wrong word, but fleshed out NPCs is that they need that story. And I know. I'll tell you a story offline, guys, of where I've used that incorrectly, and it was an interesting conversation. But no, I think it's good to have that kind of that shorthand. And I keep going back to having a shorthand, is taking those characters.
It's shorthand. That's what I'm thinking.
The story. Because you don't have to do an exposition dump about this particular character, but what you can do is that influences, that's their drives. And I think we've talked about this in previous episodes about having the motivations, having the values of your NPCs and your main antagonists, supporters, different characters who your players will interact with, is it makes it more of an interesting game. And even if you're taking things from bad movies, bad TV, it's still a shorthand. It's the way our brains work.
No.
It pulls them together.
The latest the Spelljammer Adventure literally says your homework as a DM or a players is to go and watch Flash Gordon, because this is highly influenced on that film. And they even say, they're like, the costumes are insane, it's not really that great or whatever, but you have to watch it because that's what it's about. And
what about
I went and watched it.
Hello.
And like, I would never watch it. I mean, there's so many like OG things that bring a huge context. There's new things. Like, I'm just thinking, if you want to run Eberron, watch Shadow and Bone, because the Morning, which is this fissure of insane magical cataclysm that's taken place. It's also very steampunk and magic. It is so Eberron, it's not funny. Like, you have like magic, like more like airbending, Last Airbender contextually, but it's all of that, and it's beautiful characters and great acting. And then from like specific characters, the mad scientist I mentioned from Hemlock Grove, like he has come through as the abbot in Kresk for me.
Oh, excellent. Chris Lestrade. Okay.
And then, like, that's it. And it's like, that's like, I could keep talking. We don't have a lot of time, but we never really got into like what I actually have brought from Hemlock Grove to my game. So it's
go on.
each
Talk about
character. It's how the werewolves shift in that. Because the way that they visually did it is quite unique. It's not just Grove's hair gets big. I won't tell anyone because it is a spectacle. They show this thing. How do Upir work? What is all of this? Why does she have a mad scientist? What are they trying to do? And then there's all of the interlinked characters. And then that's, again, like Famke Janssen as this vampiress.
Is Famke Janssen
her
in it?
story. Yes, she
that's
is the
awesome.
head vampiress. She is
Definitely want to watch it now. She's awesome.
Skarsgård's mother.
Yeah.
And she
Oh,
protects him.
perfect. Yeah.
And she loves him, and she will do anything for him, and no one can touch him. And then he wants to play with the gypsy boys. So again, the gypsies, the Vistani, there's a whole that side of it, and you see their family and how they protect each other, and their tricks and their little magics, and how they scam people. And it's like, again, I'm sorry that is the stereotype that's put out. They have revised Curse of Strahd to not be that, but unfortunately, in Hemlock Grove, I'm simply conveying what it is presented as. But they are also portrayed as very soulful, family-oriented people. They, again, will do anything for their kin and their family. So I won't say anything about, again, like there's so many things that I brought specifically to Curse of Strahd, but unfortunately they are spoilers in and of themselves. There's an Order of the Dragon who hunt the bad things in the night. So there is literally an Esmeralda inspiration in there.
Oh, sweet.
There is so much goodness going on. It's quite wonderful. So, that's inspiring.
There's something awesome about that, because you've clearly had that kind of influence, because it's also, there's a love of that game, Curse of Strahd, but it's also that there are other media out there that have that kind of thing.
Boo Radley Boo is one of my Curse of Strahd players. My current
excellent.
Welcome.
It kind of reminded me of something else as well, because about character influence, and also playing, because I mean, we're talking a lot about GMing, but it's also when you get a chance to play characters. And it's because every time I have a new character that I'm going to play for something, I keep thinking, okay, what's the inspiration for this? What do I want to play? What's going to be fun? And there was in the game, it actually isn't a player character. It wasn't intended to be. It was meant to be a character I brought in to be kind of an engaging person for the game I'm running. But then one of our players took it on board, who's, I think, watching tonight. Hi, Kit Kat. She ran her own game, which was set in the world, and it was actually based around. I went, oh, well, then I'll use him actually as the character. That was the first time I'd had a chance to bring him out, so I got to play it. And I don't know why, I think partly because there was a guy in the group who's playing Arcane Trickster. So he's like a thief, but he has a little bit of magic and he doubles that kind of thing as well. Smart and keeps trying to that way. And he's very much about study and learning things that way. And I thought, I don't know why, I just thought I wanted to have a foil for him. And I wanted to have something different. And I thought, so what about someone who doesn't study for magic? What about someone who just... It's in your blood, man. And for some reason, it just started going to surfer dude hippie trip or something. And I just thought of Bill and Ted, and I couldn't help it. And so my sorcerer is kind of like, yeah, man, it's like you just live it. And, when you wake up and you feel that sunrise on you, man, and it's like the magic's in your blood. It's like, don't worry about all those books and shit. You're gonna have a great time. And he's like, that's where he came from, and he just started going from there. And so that's where that kind of character came from in the end as well. And I've had such a ball playing it. It was not what I planned for until it came about. But it was nice to have that hook, and I thought, I'm not trying to play him as dumb. And I didn't think that was the whole point. It was just that he doesn't do it from study. He doesn't. He's in there and he just feels it, and he just like, how is it like this? And
this is how it goes.
Man, and he's so chill and laid back. And he wanted to have someone who's laid back and not, sort of like concerned all the time about the right thing to do. So, it's fun. You can't guess where inspiration is going to come from sometimes.
No, it comes from so many different places. Speak of inspiring, thank you so much, Boo Redley, for the gift sub.
Hey,
thank you. Right now, the devil. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. It's wonderful.
That doesn't mean I'm taking care of rubble. You you get yourself in
in
trouble, right?
reference to-
Speaking of arcane tricksters, yes.
I think you manifested an arcane trickster. I love this.
He plays a
could be
dragonborn
dangerous,
arcane
yeah.
trickster
Yeah, it could be
who
actually.
non-canonically has a tail, and he got a blacksmith to forge a mace, so he has an extra weapon, dangerous for a
Oh.
rogue.
Oh, I love
And
this.
He's
That is
now taken a
amazing.
curse of a ravenkin, so he is now a were-raven. Because yes, I do that in my Curse of
This
Strahd game.
character.
You can be a ravenkin. Come now, join us. It's great. The weather's fine.
They have
in Barovia.
posters.
It's fun. Yeah.
Be
I
a
have a-
Raven King.
I have
It'll
a
be
whole
amazing.
shtick.
Everybody's having so much fun.
It's great.
Oh, you know what? I just realized I take inspiration from infomercials as well. Hi,
Oh,
come into
really?
the
All the
shop.
time.
You'll love
All
this.
the time.
It's got all the things, and let me demonstrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I get like
Yeah.
it encapsulates things. We keep saying it's a way of just jumping into it, having an idea and running with it. Like that's the other thing is I feel like for new GMs, it's just the perfect thing. Just literally take an episode of something that was great in Epic and run that. The sci-fi series, the 100. It's quite a long, fantastic series. They go to different planets. It's fucking crazy. They do shit. Lots of different things, cultures, time, travel. It's wonderful. And there's just so many like very specific, like the endings of the seasons are so grand and so epic. And there's just one particular battle where there's one tribe and another tribe and just the valley that they're in and the way that they strategize and they set up and the things that go wrong. Like I've used that in a one shot that I run, the Dark Caverns of Khazad-dûm or something, and it's this, they go and fight some Draugr and they're all part of like this alliance and like they're a scouting party and they go ahead and that's this battle that I pull from as this thing that they see and they have to scout around and be careful and stop the ritual. So, you know, take some inspiration from anything, do some crazy cool things. Just keep enjoying bringing things that you enjoy to the table, because if you enjoy it, everyone else will enjoy it. From characters that you bring as players, from soundtracks that you listen to while you play. And I guess this is also a bit of an end cap because we are.
It is. It's a wonderful.
Nailing it. I'm just gonna kind of give ourselves a pat on the shoulder. We've been nailing this last few weeks, but to kind of bring it.
Now we've said it.
Now we've said it. With all of the things we've brought from literature and all of these podcasts, these blogs that we've consumed, like let your world that inspires you, gives you life and love and gives you a reason to be joyous, bring that to the table. Be that silly character that you thought was great. Just try it on and try something different and just bring it.
Nicely
you know what, Boo Radley, we do actually have an after chat. I will invite you to the Discord, and I would love if you wanted to come and just voice chat with us for a bit if you've got some time. Because this is actually perfect. I'd love to answer your question. What is the most common influence you guys see in PC design, player character design? Well, we've run out of time for the episode, but if you want to come hang out with us, I'll send you the info, dude. So, thank you once again, everyone. That was fantastic chat. You've been amazing. If you guys are consuming this somewhere where you can comment, leave a comment, because we want to see what you guys are thinking after this conversation has ended. But you can always tune in each and every week. And next week, we're planning, well, Ian is planning, we're all kind of planning to participate.
I mean, there's lots of plans going on.
Ian is going to game master for us an epic high-level game, a sequel to what was going to be a one-shot, and it will be level 20.
As happens with one-shots.
So we're going to talk about what goes into that.
Very much
because
talking about how do we prepare for a high level game. That's for next week, and we'd love to hear you guys about the madness that you prepare.
There's an ad about to start. We have to wrap it up. We have to go. Sorry.
All good.
But yes, I think it's very exciting talking about how we prepare for a high level game. with different perspectives as well. I think anyone who's seen a few episodes of that has seen we have different ways of preparing. We have wonderful GM Jared, who has incredible databases. There's me with my notes scattered across the desk and throwing them everywhere. But I think for a high-level game, there's certainly some things that go into that, which are a little more complex because there's a lot more going on. And I know the sentence structure was poor, but you know what I mean.
I think it was good. It was very, also, your players are also
next week.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Tune in next week
because for the game that we're going to hold on the 9th of September, check that out. We've got some details coming through as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can tune into this game.
Please do. Yes, do tune into our game. It's going to be a lot of fun. We might even throw some spicy bits in. I reckon we should let chat give inspiration in that game. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Let's do it. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, we're going to raid out. I will find someone to raid. My mouse has died, but I will find someone to raid. And
check out the link.
It's been a pleasure.
Discord link is in the chat right now. Come check it out. We're going to be chatting to you live after the show. Come tune in.
That's awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for hosting, Jared.
Thank you so much. We love you all.
Thank you,
Have a wonderful evening.
Wow.
See you soon.
See you next time.
Bye.